Welcome back to the Dusty Ranch. We have 50 hours, just a dab over 50 hours on the LT-40 Super, and it is time for the initial break-in oil change on this 38 horsepower EFI Kohler engine. Now, the precarious placement of the oil filter on this unit has me a little bit concerned about getting oil all over my engine. I'm going to use some shop rags, towels, and put around that thing and see if we can keep as much oil off the engine as possible. So join me and we will walk through the first oil change on the LT-40 Super. So what I have done here is I have a 2x6 board with a block on the far left side there to compensate for weight, and that allows me to get my bucket right up and against the drain plug there on this engine. Now I want to point this out as well. This oil filter is the same oil filter that is on the LT-35 with 25 horsepower gas engine. So I've got a handful of those laying around, so it saves me a little bit of money when I go to change this. So if you guys have that same engine, that same oil filter lying around, there you go. The first two tools that you're going to need are a wrench or a socket, 13/16. That's going to be the cap there, and then you're going to need an 11/16 wrench, open end wrench, to hold that while you take it loose. I will note that from the factory there is some Teflon tape on the drain plug there. You may can see it in the video. It's not a bad idea to put some oil Teflon back on before you put your plug in. I do not have any today, so that will not happen for me, but you may want to consider that when you're getting your tools together. So as that's draining, I'm going to go ahead and stuff some towels in around this engine and go ahead and take that filter off. I will also say that I heard someone else say, I think it was the old man in the sawmill, say another option is to use tin foil, put tin foil under there. However, I do not have any tin foil readily available, so we will have to do with an abundant supply of shop towels today. I will say it makes it very easy to take off. Oh, and it does a very good job of draining back into the reservoir. So that was actually a very welcome relief. No oil seeping out onto the engine. Not what I expected. Now, for me personally, I always like to write the date and number of hours on my filters. And normally I do it with a Sharpie. However, I do not have a Sharpie on hand today. So I will document that and write it later. Well, I got to poking around in the truck and I found an orange paint pen and a red Sharpie. So we'll write it on there with both. And this unit has, let's see if we can zoom in here and look at it, 53.5 hours on it at current. So we will write that on our filter. I'm going to write it on the side right there where I can see it. Also going to write it on the top. Something else that I'll show you while we're standing here that I've started doing, and you may be able to see it right there in the center of the screen, started documenting just on the sawmill itself my blade changes. And I'm doing that with a black Sharpie, and I can come back later and clean that off with some alcohol or fingernail polish remover. But the reason I have been doing that is so that I am a little better. I can see it first off right there on the mill, and I can keep a little better record on how much I get out of each blade, because doing math recently I've realized the blade is a significant part of my overall overhead. Okay, so we've got the oil pretty well all drained here. It's doing a little drip drip, but I am content with that. We'll go ahead and put our plug back on. And I'm going to take a magnet when we get finished and run in the bottom of that bucket and see if we come out with any shapes. I just want to be kind of aware of what this Brenhammer new engine is doing. So we shall see. All right, 2.5 quarts has us right on money. Put the fuel cap back on, don't forget that. And while we are servicing, we're gonna go ahead and pull our filter, our air filter. You should do that very regularly and keep that bad boy clean. There's a lot of dust around the sawmill, imagine that. Very easy to access with intake. Check your filter. I really like the design of this filter. It's the two-part, very similar, excuse me, very similar to what is in my skid steer, my Bobcat. This one is a little bit dirty. I'm going to take it and bump it out. This one on the inside, the interior is extremely clean. Nothing in the air box itself. Well, let's try to keep it that way. You can see this is a little bit dirty, but not bad. Bump it out right here in front of you. Actually more dust than you would think. I'm going to take it and blow it out with the air compressor. Wood-Mizer recommends you check your air filter every 8 hours of operation. That one went about 15, and you can see those fine particles of dust getting in there. It's just not healthy for the system. A very easy way to keep your system running, just check your air filter, clean that thing out. You don't want your engine to starve for the necessary oxygen to make that combustion. and those very fine particles will absolutely clog it up to the point where it is starved for oxygen, suffocates. So I bought these magnets a while back on Amazon, very cheap for a handful of pretty powerful magnets. They come in really handy while I'm milling. Somebody gives me their cut list, and one end or the other of the mill, I can take this and attach it right there with the paper, and it's secure. Matter of fact, it's really a pain to get off. I'll get that one later. I'm gonna take this one and just put it on the end of this chainsaw tool and give it a little swirl inside of my engine oil here. Got maybe 2 small pieces of shavings. I don't even know if I can focus in on it. It's so small. Nothing to be concerned about. They're right there on, right there, and one little bitty piece right on the edge. Like I say, nothing. You can see it right there if you really look hard. Nothing at all that I'm concerned about, especially on a break-in. So that pretty well wraps up our oil change. Now is also a great time to go ahead and check all of your bolts, your nuts, anything that moves, that rattles or shimmies just a little bit. Go ahead and check those, make sure they're nice and tight, especially on some of the ground wires and such. That can affect your EFI module and cause it to starve for fuel a little bit if those are not nice and tight. So just pay attention to that stuff. You also don't want your guide rollers to start getting loose. That can affect your blade on the up and down. So at this 50-hour mark, it's just a great moment in time to go ahead and stop, shake everything, make sure everything is nice and tight. Go ahead and grease everything. Every time you service, you should grease everything. You should be greasing every 10 hours or so. But make sure all that stuff is done. If you're gonna do it anytime, now's a great time to do it. You've already taken time out of your schedule. So, hope you've learned something, hope you've gained some value from this video. As we mingle with others, let us be just in our dealings, courteous to everyone, above all, honest and fair in the game of life. Until we see you next time, keep it dusty.